I'm Advisor John Harmon. I've got some excellent news to share. I've got a presentation here from Ryan, the Vice President of Product Development at Zapp Energy, talking about their Z-Pinch machine to harness fusion. We're going to talk about their pilot plant plans. Let's jump into it.
Wonderful. Thank you. Again, it's a pleasure to spend some time with you all today. Thanks for joining us. My name is Ryan Umstattd. I'm our Vice President for Product Development, and I have a true passion for the commercialization of fusion energy. I also know completely that I can't succeed in this journey without help from a lot of folks that are joining us here today. And what I mean by that is I know that I've got a lot of outreach to do. I've got a lot of conversations to have with various stakeholders. And I think a lot of it's going to involve not just, sharing information and being transparent, but also a lot of listening and answering questions, addressing issues. And so I view this as an opportunity to start part of that. Luckily, I've been able to practice a little bit of this locally already. Zapp Energy is doing a site feasibility study in the state of Washington for a pilot plant. And so I've been down there and started talking to the community, the mayor's office, the city council members, the local fire department, as well as others. But I want to find a way to sort of scale that outreach and get even more questions and do a better job at what I'm trying to get done here. So that's why, again, I appreciate this opportunity to share with you all a little bit today about Zapp Energy. We are one of a few dozen companies right now that have been founded primarily in the last few years with the goal of commercializing fusion. And so I'm here, representing one of many. Of those companies, there's quite a variety in terms of the technology approaches. And so there's lots of different ways to try to sort of heat and compress and confine this plasma to get to the conditions where you get more energy out. And so I'll share with you a little bit about our specific approach. But each of these companies has, a very potentially different flavor of how they go about trying to get fusion energy. And they're also at a different stage of development. Some of the companies have been around for several years and are more mature. Some of them have different levels of funding. And so there's quite a breadth right now in terms of not just technology approach, but size of company, funding levels of the companies. So I'd like to share with you a little bit about the Zapp story and how we're commercializing fusion energy. Founded back in 2017, spun out of the University of Washington. The company, since I joined, which is about 16 months ago, we've tripled in size. So it's been an exciting ride to grow that fast, but also to see that we can continue to meet our challenging technical milestones while we're growing and building up the team and building out the different levels of different expertise that have to contribute and come together to design a pilot plant. We've had a few rounds of funding as well from various private investors. I'm proud of the fact that our investors include folks like energy strategics, Chevron and Shell, and then those that are really focused on clean energy and climate technology investments like Breakthrough Energy Ventures and Lower Carbon Capital. I've also found a lot of value working with folks like Energy Impact Partners, where the funding from that particular fund comes from the energy industry. And so it's large electricity and energy industry partners like Southern Company and TVA that we get to interface with through that relationship. To date, we've garnered about $200 million in private investment. And again, it's allowed us the opportunity to grow fast while also accelerating the progress of our technology development. So what is Zapp Energy doing in terms of what's our technical approach? I like to generate a lot of energy in a very short period of time. You catch it, you do something useful with that energy, and then you exhaust the system out and you do it again. That's what we're doing at Zapp Energy. This is an artistic rendering of what it would look like as a power plant, but we already do this in our lab today. Basically, we're injecting fuel gas, which for us is deuterium purely at this point. We energize that gas by pushing electricity through it. That turns it into a plasma where now there's charged particles that are moving around. And because those particles are charged, they now respond to electric and magnetic fields. And so they get accelerated down the axis of this device where they turn a corner and they turn into a very long, skinny, thin pinch. This pinch is about half a meter in length. So about 1.5 feet in length. And that plasma is now getting heated and compressed by the amount of current that's flowing through it. It's got a magnetic field that helps squeeze on it to get us to the conditions where we've got dense enough and hot enough for a certain period of time that we can generate these fusion reactions. For us, we catch all that energy in what's shown here as a flowing liquid metal blanket. That liquid metal blanket catches all that energy, so it protects everything else from getting irradiated with neutrons. It becomes our heat transfer medium. As Scott mentioned earlier, we're now going to then use that to flow through a heat exchanger to drive a steam turbine and generate electricity. And it also contains some lithium in that blanket. As Scott mentioned earlier, you have to make tritium, and so we will be breeding some tritium inside that liquid metal blanket. Essentially, this process runs in our lab today. We can fire a shot every couple of minutes. At a power plant scale, we would need to be firing this shot several times a second. Speaking of which, let's see what it looks like a little bit in a power plant environment. So in this particular animation, again, we're running at several hertz, several times a second, so it looks almost like a glow. When we talk about safety, during operations, we're using shielding, much like you would have to use shielding if you were getting dental x-ray or if you were getting a CT scan. So you need the shielding. If the vacuum vessel breaks, air rushes in. Again, we do want to make sure that we keep all tritium on site. It is mildly radioactive and it should not be introduced into the environment, but we know how to manage at risk, and it's something that there are other locations, national labs and such, that have been managing quantities of tritium for many decades, and there's lots of expertise we can leverage. So the key questions I'll repeat, because these are things that have come up when I speak with folks here in the state of Washington about fusion.
Okay, it's got here about how safe is fusion energy. In this design, you're having to deal with managing tritium. That is very understood. That's a radioactive hydrogen. To be honest, bananas are radioactive also. We can manage it. It's already known, understood. Benefits and risk. The temperatures that can be achieved are going to be tremendous. The benefits are going to be the waste stream is totally different. For example, with this Z-pinch, they're going to be making helium with a deuterium fusion. If you really wanted to, you could scale this type of device. Once they work through the technical challenges to make sure all the engineering works, you could really build a big one if it's economical to make helium with it. And the first goal is to make electricity. Everybody wants clean electricity. Site boundary, it would be dealing with tritium, which is a radioactive gas. The site boundary would have to be accommodated for. That would go through the licensing and the public buy-in. Investment to bring it to your region. Did you notice at the beginning of the video the investors that they have in this company? It jumped out at me, Chevron and Shell. That's some big players in the energy business. These plants are going to be small and modular, could be deployed in several places. They could be used to power data centers. They could be used to also make electricity. You could power maglev trains. You could put one in a skyscraper. It's going to be a big game changer. Now, granted, it's going to take some time. I'm not saying we're going to see this tomorrow, but you've got to start somewhere. Now, these guys have started, and they've received serious funding. So, for the praying types out there that are watching the channel, if you like what you're seeing, I plan to do more. This is one of the fusion companies. I've already done a video on Helion. There's some others I plan to do. I think it's going to be interesting. That I believe the different approaches could all be successful. Matter of when. Working through the technical challenges, putting the right human resource, brain power into it. I've got some hope that we're going to see this eventually help with another clean air source to make electricity, because we really do enjoy our high standard of living with all our connected electronic devices, data centers, your banking, your social media. Everything takes a lot of electricity. And now with the going to the electric vehicles, that's going to also require a lot of electricity on a power grid. This is really a promising device. Looking forward to seeing them. And I'm going to basically stay up on what's happening with Zapp Energy up there in Washington State. I'm going to go pull the thread and try to find out how things are going with the pilot that they were looking at with siting with a coal plant that was going to decommission in Washington. They were doing a feasibility study on that. That be interested to see what they're concluding. Put your mind to it. Now, if you go greenfield, like let's say we want to get this license to put it into an office building, it could power your skyscraper. Just got to work through the permitting. This will all be approved by the regulatory agency, and it would have public buy-in. Everybody would have their comment in the comment period. That's what they're seeking, is to educate the public about they are working towards having a fusion machine. And I'm just sharing this information to help those who are interested become more aware of what's going on, because knowledge is power. So I just wanted to share that. So peace out. Praying these guys are successful.